So this book for me is bittersweet. This is Iron Fist issue 15. And as you can see, in final battle against the X-Men. This is unfortunately the last issue in the first volume of Iron Fist. So I guess the book was canceling and then it was going to start going into the team up. And I think that's where we finally start to see him teaming up with Power Man, which is a great time. And I need to get on that. But nonetheless, this book was a whole lot of fun. So let's dive right into it. The print date on this was, where is it? Does not give a month, but we'll just say 1977. And what I love about this book is, so it's Iron Fist, obviously, but check out who's working on it. This is Chris Claremont, author, John Byrne, artist, Dan Green, inker, Annette Kawecki doing the lettering, B. Patterson doing the colors, and Archie Goodwin at the time was the editor. And so even though we are going kind of down the journey of Danny Rand, with these two, we know who's going to be heavily involved in this story. So enter the X-Men. The tip-off had been brief and to the point. A valuable Rand Meacom shipment was to be hijacked this evening, and only Iron Fist could stop it. It was a trap, of course. That's why you'd followed up on the tip to find out who was behind it and why he was after you. And so one thing that I like is these dialogue boxes are, in a sense, third-person narration, but it's like Danny's talking to himself in the third person as we go on. But I just thought that was kind of a neat difference because I've never really seen a lot of that in a book. And then, of course, the old school crud. It's not onomatopoeias. Or is it? Yeah, because I think I'm thinking palindromes. But, you know, where the sound makes the whack, whack. Stop him, you bums. He's only... Watch yourself, Iron Fist. There's a fourth man, and he's holding a gun on you. And so the book, as you can see, opens up with some great action. And, of course, old school, beautiful Marvel comic artwork as Danny's planning. He goes, Dragon's Bone, a machine gun. I have to draw up below his line of fire. Strike back faster than he can react. I need to reach the man fast. This garbage lid can do the trick. Thwing. And so I just love how, because, you know, he's a master of the Kung Lun arts, he's very disciplined, even under fire. However, it takes someone just around the same realms as him to take him out and start draining part of his Iron Fist. How does it feel to be on the ground, Daniel Rankai? To know that you've finally met your match. The voice, the fighting style. It's the martial artist who ambushed me before I left for Canada. I've been on my back before, warrior, and I've been beaten, but Iron Fist never gives up. And what's unfortunate is because this is the last issue, we don't get any more in terms of who this character is. I mean, now, 2026, umpteen years later, we do, but at the time, and you know, the guy is standing there, hidden in shadows, and he goes, I want the Iron Fist, and not all your vaunted skill can stop me. Now, with that said, I do want to take a moment here because I know that you guys have kind of heard me talk about how with modern comics, the dialogue pisses me off. So think about this. Think of how they're talking to each other. So I see. Did you think boyish bravado would help you? His technique, I know it. That's what's been throwing me off. He's using a style as familiar to me as my own. One he could only have learned in Kunlun. So you're learning things, and you know the dialogue is not kidsy. You know, it's like reading an actual novel. And I say that we're going to put this on a brief hold to bring up this. And this is wanted to finally give an example. This is from Gwenpool, and even modern. So when Gwen was first introduced, even though you know she's supposed to kind of have that fourth person witticism about her, like Deadpool, says you might have noticed. I prefer guns over superpowers. And she goes, evil doers, I foil with my bullets. And this was her first appearance. So we're thinking that we're going to get this awesome, like, female violent version of Deadpool. And then I flip over, and we get to what the book actually is. And this is like the Tumblr art that I'm telling you about. This is the type of artwork that you would see on Tumblr. You know, she's talking about the billing, and she goes, here, marks, dollar, bills on her eyes. Now I have to go clean that mask again. Stop it. Well, when I'm done with this job, I'll tip you very nicely for it. And it's just cartoonsy, cartoonsy. And I mean, look at this. We get the bad guy. Don't get me wrong, the shading's not bad. But if you look at what happened, this was what, around 2017, compared to a book that was on its way out. I mean, look at how Wolverine is put in shadows watching over Jeannie's apartment. And it says, the evening moves on and we shift our scene uptown from the Battery to Greenwich Village to a quiet side street just off Washington Square. And a man standing a solitary, self-appointed vigil. His name is Logan. Though almost no one knows it, he likes it that way, because names are shared with friends, and above else, Wolverine is a loner. Or was. These days, he's not so sure. And so, look at all this information that we're getting without it being too drawn out, and you're feeling like you're reading a book, compared to the ending of this issue where Gwen just throws something in the fire. It's like, money did it, babies. Who cares? And then this, she's fighting a sentinel. She goes, remote's in. How'd you do that? They use the same attack patterns as the old X-Men arcade game. Oh my God, who gives a shit? Sorry, but I finally wanted to kind of give you guys an example of what irks my Gurk in modern comics. And that crap right there is like prime example of this compared to, these are just panels of Wolverine watching over Jean's apartment, misty night undercover. And look at how the art team, John Byrne and everyone, takes the time for the anatomy of the old school make mine Marvel way, instead of cutesy, ooh, look at that, that is so adorable. Look at MODOK with the cool widow haircut. Oh, it is so cutesy. Ugh. Moving on, but you guys get the idea. And what I've always enjoyed about Claremont, and Scott Liddell to a lesser degree because he carried the X-Men, but we get what's going to be happening further, you know, once the team up happens with Danny Rand, and of course, the X-Men. And then we cut along to an interlude because earlier on, and I believe it was the first appearance of Sabretooth, I can't remember, I think it's Iron Fist 13 or something like that. We went over it, I'll leave a card up here. But Misty essentially leaves Danny. They were dating. And it says, interlude, Cutlass Bay, on the Caribbean island of St. Emile. Once it had been a favorite haunt of pirates. Now it's a resort, catering exclusively to the very rich and very powerful. It's a paradise on earth. Not the sort of place where you'd expect to find an ex-cop, an ex-New York City lady cop named Misty Knight. And I love how we get this, and it doesn't even feel like we're doing film per se. I mean, we got the concepts, but you know, we get the wide shot kind of showing the resort, and then Misty Knight. That's funny. For the first time in ages, I still ache inside. That hasn't changed. Like I cut out a piece of my own soul when I walked out on him. No more, Misty. Danny Rand isn't worth the effort. Think about the job. That way you'll stay alive. And then we cut into her story about how she's going undercover to try to get this mob cartel person who has never been able to get a hold of this guy. And she says, I'm closer to him than any human has ever been. And then we cut back to New York. And allegedly, from what I understand, in this time period, Jean and Misty were roommates. And so Danny's coming in to visit him. And what I love here, if you think back to when we went over X-Force 72, and remember the Mayo joke that kind of ran through it, and Peter David had that funny way of kind of tossing it around and showing that ultimately it was a joke from Jamie Madrox. Here, very kind of low-key, we see that there's a party about to happen. It says at that moment, 1,800 miles north by northwest of St. Emile. So this is Misty and Jean Grey's apartment. I'm impressed. From the looks of things, someone's planning a party. I wonder what this is. And so he takes a lick of it. I know that sounded wrong. Potatoes, eggs, celery, spices, mayonnaise. Tastes good. I'll have to ask Colleen about it. So he's taking a taste of this potato salad. Just keep that in mind. Now he says, hold on a minute. I hear feet rushing up the stairs. Someone's charging the door. Freeze, Bob. You're trespassing in my woman's place, mister. And for that little crime, Wolverine's gonna cut you to pieces. then we get the huge and Danny saying, "Gods of Kunlun." Now keep that in mind as we look at Cecil. I choose you. What do you think is going to stand the test of time? Wolverine has since a while now, and him and Danny just kind of going at it. Original dialogue instead of Cecil, I choose you, you silly little doopy doffy hee 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 hee. I know, sorry, you guys are gonna get interludes of that. I apologize, but it's time. It's time. I'm sick and tired of it. And what's kind of neat is I think this is shortly after they return from Shi'ar space. So Wolverine is still wearing Fang's uniform, and I think this is the last time you ever see it. And so the battle just proceeds. And even Danny, as strong as he is, he tosses Wolverine out the window. He goes, I didn't think where I was throwing Wolverine, Lord of the Dead. If it's a 5-story fall to the street, I've killed him. And then we interlude to Kurt and Nightcrawler coming to the party. And as the battle continues, Colossus comes in full organic metal. Storm hears something going on. She goes, but in so many ways, hold on, she goes, oh, Aurora, it feels so good to soar for the sheer joy of it. These past months, the X-Men have been so hard put, merely keeping ourselves alive. We've had little time to relax and get to know one another. We're all friends. So again, this is real early on. So they're still kind of getting used to one another. But in so many ways, we're still strangers. Goddess willing, Jean's party tonight will begin to change that. Peter hits the table. Without another thought, Storm steps inside the apartment and her fate is sealed. Aurora, look out! Too late, Nightcrawler. Remember the potato salad? And then we cut to Moira and Banshee coming to the party, and all of a sudden we see this like Ghostbusters Zool style. And Moira's just like, Lord, lightning bolts. Moira exploding out of Jean's flat. And so they all take in, ready to attack Danny. And where is it? Hold on. Storm changes. She goes, villain, you've attacked my friends. Attacked me, and for that, Storm will make you pay. And before anything else can happen, like she stops herself and she says, the mayonnaise was just kind of the, what was it? Right here. Scott says, okay, Wolverine as usual jumped to a conclusion, but you, Aurora, why? And I love how we go from seeing the mistress, the goddess face, to this very kind of sheepish look looking at her teacher. Because at this point, Aurora is not the leader of the X-Men. She is still learning. Scott is the seasoned leader. So when we see Aurora down the road after she's beat Calypso and took over the Morlocks, took over the X-Men, beat Scott without her powers, this is still a woman learning. And it's just a really interesting dynamic. Now, looking back at this through nostalgia lens, just a very wonderful little panel. And as the book comes to an end, everyone has I guess it's like a housewarming party. It says, it doesn't take long to clear the mess away, especially with the arriving guests all lending a hand. It's all a while longer before the police and neighbors are calmed down. Eventually, though, the apartment is echoing with the sounds of good talk and good music, and everyone seems to be having a good time. Now, when I was talking about how I hate goofy meta humor, I like when it's done tastefully. So, for example, we see two dudes here. It's like, how do you tell these bozos apart, Bond? Easy, Patty. Mine's the bearded blonde. And so I'm thinking this is supposed to be like Claremont and John Byrne, and I'm not sure who the other cat is, but I just love that little joke there. Now, as the book comes to an end, Dan, of course, apologizes for the damage. And I love how Jean says, that's okay, Danny. As far as the heavy work's concerned, I've already taken a volunteer to take care of it. Don't I, Wolverine? And you just see how he angrily just the beer can. So to me, this is how you could do kind of a goofy book and sort of have a nice lighthearted feel to wrapping up a series, other than what we went over, which was painful, and that was an ongoing series. So after this, as I said, is the last issue of the original volume of Iron Fist. After this, it became the Marvel Team Up, I think is what it was called. But even though you could see how Claremont and Byrne focused on the X-Men, I always love when you see Danny Rand team up with anybody, whether it be Luke Cage or the X-Men. He's just one of those great supporting characters, and why he's still cherished to this day, at least in my opinion. So, gang, if you've enjoyed what you've seen, please first and foremost support your local comic shop or wherever it is like to get your action figures and comics and pick up this issue. If you've enjoyed this review, really would appreciate taking a moment to like, share, and subscribe. Helps the channel more than you could possibly know. And if you don't mind hitting that fancy little iron fist bell next to subscribe, that way as I can tip all content, you guys get notified. Come to the channel, and I love talk with y'all and hearing your thoughts and feedback down in the comments or the socials, which I'll make sure the links down in the description. Additionally, if you enjoy what I do and you'd like to help support the channel, I have also left a PayPal tip jar link down in the description. And if not, either way, I still appreciate you stopping by and checking out the video. Either way, hope y'all continue to have an absolutely amazing day reading, and happy hunting, everyone.